what I'm interested in is actually the very traditional, non-innovative idea of city planning. And the idea of city planning that I had in the back of my mind is the city's going to grow. A lot of people are going to come. And we have to prepare for that. That's the role. The role of city planners is to prepare land for the occupation by the people who are going to come to that, to occupy the city. And in the old days, where very few people came, or when it was slow, it was okay to say, well, we'll make this area a little bit bigger and so on. But from 1800 onwards, when we started to see urbanization take place very quickly, cities have, or city planners, have never been able to keep pace. They don't understand somehow how much cities are going to grow. So if you say to them, look, in the next 30 years, your city is going to double in population and triple in area, you get kicked out of the room for being crazy. So after having been kicked out of the room several times, I decided that the only way to convince people is to collect evidence to show that cities actually grow at that pace. They grow in both upwards and sideways. And when you look at how much they grow upwards compared to how much they grow sideways, when you measure it across, let's say, a global sample of cities, you ask people, okay, what share of the population was accommodated in the existing footprints of cities compared to the share that was accommodated in the expansion area? And first of all, nobody has an answer to that question. So you can ask all the experts, you know, how much do you think densification accommodates population increase as against expansion? We studied that in a global sample of 200 cities, and the answer is a quarter is accommodated by densification, 3/4 is accommodated by expansion. Still, you have a lot of planning offices and planning ideologies like the compact city paradigm, which is very popular among planners, especially in America, that say we don't want expansion, we don't want growth, we want densification. Well, unfortunately, densification is both difficult and expensive and not affordable. So it's true that when Alain said that land prices on the periphery are cheaper, there's no reason to go beyond like the Infonavit in Mexico. But if we are going to keep the city affordable, we have to keep expanding it. And so one of the things that I try to do academically in order to convince people that cities in fact expand is take a global sample of cities, you can see it here, and measure expansion from 1990 to 2015 using a tool that has only become available really in 1990, which is satellite imagery. So once you have satellite imagery, you can see how much the city grows every decade, every year. And you can see, for example, this is Addis Ababa in 1990 and Addis Ababa in 2014, or you can see, you can see Paris over a 200-year period, starting in 1800, the time of Napoleon, where the city had 500,000 people and occupied 11 square kilometers, to 2015, where the city had 11 million people and occupied 2,200 square kilometers. So the population of the city grew by a factor of 20. The area of the city grew by a factor of 200. So you could see that. By the way, I saw a beautiful poster like that on the street around, showing the growth of Paris during that period. So anyway, we've been able to show that city, this is Accra, 1991, 2000, 2014, grew by a factor of 8 in a matter of a generation. So once you have these numbers, you can go back to the mayors and say, here are numbers from 200 cities all over the world. If you think you're different, tell us why. If we think you are like everybody else, this is what's going to happen to your city too. So that evidence, which was collected together with UN Habitat and the Lincoln Institute for the Habitat 3 conference in Quito in 2016, resulted in what is called the Atlas of Urban Expansion, which has all of this data and has and can show people how fast cities are growing. And like Angela says, the new generation of the Atlas, which we're working on now, using more AI than before, we can generate this information for all cities in the world of 50,000 people or more, of which there are about 12,000. So it's very easy to create like a new atlas of urban planning, which has all this information, which shows you other things like slope maps or drainage maps or sea level rise maps or precipitation maps or even pollution and heat islands. So we're able to now collect all this data, put it in one place so that every city planner everywhere can have access to it. And this goes hand in hand with what Angela was saying, with a course that we've just completed, an online course called Accommodating Urban Growth, which is an 8-hour course made up of 4-minute videos that tells you what you need to do very simply in a way that can be understood by people that don't have master's degree in urban planning but happen to be municipal officials. And this is going to be done in 6 languages and can be easily increased with Google Translate to 20 languages, 50 languages. So the entire possibility of creating what Kevin was calling earlier the capacity, the local capacity to do things, which we've been teaching people. This is Ethiopia, where we have a program with municipalities to plan for their own expansion. It's been going on since 2012. We've worked with 18 cities. Many of them have actually done what we said they needed to do, which is basically prepare the urban periphery with an arterial grid, infrastructure grid, wide roads 1 kilometer apart, that would allow expansion, keep it affordable, as Alain said, and make it possible to serve it with public transport and connect it to the metropolitan, to the urban job market. So this intervention, the Ethiopia Urban Expansion Initiative, which has actually had some results in the ground, some impacts on the ground, has recently received a large grant from Open Philanthropy to evaluate the health and the economic and health impacts of the areas that were affected by these plans and compare them to control areas that were not affected by the plan. In Colombia, we have a similar, this is one of the new arterial roads opened in Ethiopia as part of the plan. In Colombia, we're trying to get people to, in 2 cities, in Monteria and Valledupar, that already have adopted expansion plans and grid plans for the urban periphery, to delineate the arterial grid with trees on the future sidewalks of these arterial roads. So what you see here is some kind of an event with the mayor having school kids plant local trees along the future arterial roads. So again, I think as Kevin was saying earlier, and then many of us in Mara do, we do this kind of intellectual work, publishable, respectable academic work to try to talk about metrics, about findings, about what cities the world over are experiencing in terms of their growth and expansion, and then take these ideas and work with individual municipalities and local governments to implement them on the ground.